Evening, everyone. It is 5:30 and I'm calling the regular meeting workshop of the board to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and Director Kim is not feeling well tonight, so she is excused, and we'll just jump right into the report. So, Superintendent Banner.
Great, thank you, President Anderson Pearson and board directors. We have several reports this evening, several updates for you. The first of which is from our Teaching and Learning Department. Director Susie Contos and Supervisor Kim Rail are going to be speaking to us this evening on two different topics, and I think we're going to have a break for questions in between. The first being multilingual learning and dual language programming, and then dual language immersion program update. Susie.
So thank you, Superintendent Banner, Board President Anderson Pearson, and school board directors. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to update you all on the district's transitional bilingual instructional program. From here on out, I'll probably call it TBIP. That's our acronym. Sorry, let me make sure. There we go. Multilingual learners are students whose primary language is not English. They qualify for English language development and support through the TBIP program and continue receiving services until they demonstrate English proficiency. TBIP provides several key benefits for multilingual learners, or MLs, as they develop English proficiency. TBIP offers targeted instruction in English while honoring and supporting students' home languages. By providing language scaffolds and culture-responsive teaching, this dual focus helps students build academic vocabulary and communication skills more effectively in English, as MLs also access grade-level content and support their performance across subjects. Students receive support until they reach English proficiency, ensuring they are not exited prematurely and can succeed independently in mainstream classrooms. The district's MLL teachers are currently working to screen our kindergarten students and our newly enrolled students, so we don't have our final MLL enrollment numbers for the start of the 25-26 school year. However, for the 24-25 school year, you can view the district's MLL enrollment numbers where 58 languages other than English are being spoken in students' homes across the districts. In 24-25, the district enrolled 2,073 students identified as multilingual learners, with 194 of those students transitioning out of the program based on their annual WIDA assessment scores. In Washington Public Schools, students are identified for MLL services through a standardized process. Upon enrollment, families complete a home language survey to determine if a language other than English is spoken at home. If a language other than English is indicated, students are assessed using the English Language Proficiency Placement Test to determine eligibility. Students who do not meet the English proficiency threshold qualify for support through TBIP and our MLLs and are appropriate for MLL services. This process ensures that students receive appropriate language development support tailored to their needs. This chart outlines a progression in instructional practices for multilingual learners, moving from traditional isolated language teaching to a more integrated and purposeful approach. Teaching language in isolation refers to traditional methods where language is taught separately from academic content. The shift that we make is towards embedding language instruction within disciplinary practices, where students learn language through meaningful tasks that consider both purpose and audience. Next, we move from pre-teaching content in isolation to designing activities that build on students' background knowledge, scaffolding both content and language development in context. Language instruction has also evolved from an individual learning process to a socially engaged model where students collaborate in structured groups to develop both language and content knowledge. Finally, instead of focusing solely on language accuracy, modern approaches recognize language acquisition as a complex, non-linear process, emphasizing comprehension and communication as key outcomes that can take up to 5 to 7 years to reach proficiency. This shift reflects a more inclusive and effective model for supporting multilingual learners in academic settings. In the Clover Park School District, we implement the Alternative Instructional Programs, or AIP, model to support our multilingual learners. AIP is designed to help students develop English proficiency through tailored instruction, which may include English as a new language strategies. Each student who qualifies for MLL services receives 120 to 150 minutes of dedicated language support per week. This ensures consistent, focused instruction that meets both state requirements and the individual needs of our learners. The AIP model allows for flexibility in how services are delivered, enabling schools to integrate language development into core content areas while also providing targeted support. This approach helps students build academic language in meaningful context, accelerating both language acquisition and content mastery. In the Clover Park School District, we use a supportive mainstream model to ensure multilingual learners are fully included in general education classrooms while receiving the targeted support they need to succeed. This approach allows students to access grade level content while continuing to develop their English proficiency. Support is embedded within the mainstream curriculum rather than being delivered in isolation. Supportive mainstream may happen in several ways depending on a school's or a student's need. Through co-teaching, two teachers collaboratively provide instructional support to students identified for language services. Both teachers share responsibility for planning, delivering, and evaluating student learning for all students in the class or subject for the entire class period. This model is the exception to be used only for students needing the most intensive support. Through support facilitation, specialists provide in-class assistance tailored to students' needs. Two teachers are providing instruction, but it's not co-teaching. The general education teacher teaches the course content, and an MLL teacher provides services in class to an individual or group of students. Ongoing collaborative planning is necessary. The MLL teacher schedule may adjust, allowing required support to occur for a partial period or for certain days of the week, based on the needs of students as determined by language proficiency levels. And through the consultation model, one general education teacher is providing instruction, and an MLL teacher is providing consultation services and monitoring in accordance with the student's language proficiency. The teachers meet face-to-face or virtually on a regular basis to plan, implement, and monitor instructional alternatives designed to ensure success in the classroom. This is external out-of-classroom support. This flexible model of support promotes equity, inclusion, and academic success by integrating language support directly into students' daily learning experiences. The district's newcomer program serves students that are at the very beginning of their English school experience. This is a time where students receive intensive English instruction focused on foundational language skills for communication and academics. It is also a time to help students adjust to U.S. schools and feel welcome in their new environment. The teacher's instructions meet students at their academic level while integrating language development, and it allows for personalized attention and a safe space to learn and grow. It is ultimately designed to prepare students for success in mainstream classrooms within a year. At the elementary level, this time is a pull-out program built into students' daily schedules. At the secondary level, this is a class that is built in the student's daily schedule to meet with their MLL teachers. The WIDA assessment measures English language proficiency for multilingual learners in 4 domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. It helps educators identify students' language development needs and guide instructional planning. Students will receive a score on a scale from 1.0 to 6.0, which reflects their proficiency level. This score helps determine eligibility for services and track progress over time. A 1 to a 2.9 are considered entering or emerging students. They are at the beginning stages of English development. A 3 to a 4.4 students, if they scored a 3 or a 4.4, those students are considered developing or expanding in their growing ability to understand and use academic language. A 4.5 to a 6.0 are considered bridging or reaching, near or full proficiency. Students may be ready to exit language support services. In Washington State, after a multilingual learner exits the TBIP program due to demonstrating English proficiency, the student continues to be monitored for 2 years. The purpose of this monitoring is to ensure the students continue to succeed academically without language support, to identify any challenges that may require reentry into the program or additional instructional support, and also to maintain compliance with federal and state guidelines for supporting former English learners. This monitoring includes reviewing academic performance, class participation, and assessment data to ensure a smooth transition from language services. I want to thank you all again for your time and would like to take this opportunity to answer any questions you may have about the program.
So that's okay. So I've worked with a lot of ELL or language learner students in the past. And so at the elementary, middle school, and high school level, it's 120 to 150 minutes. How does it look at each of those levels? So I'm assuming it's a little bit different.
It does look a little different. So they all send their schedules to Ms. Rail, who is the MLL supervisor. And what we do at the elementary, it's a push-in during writing instruction. So that provides the opportunity to do a lot of oral rehearsals, do a lot of syntax, semantics kind of discussion around what we're writing, what we hear, what we say, kind of, strengthening the clarity of what this looks like on paper and what this looks like orally. So that's at the elementary level, and the principals build that schedule. So during second grade writing time, that MLL teacher would be pushing in, working with the students that are identified for those services. At secondary, it's a push-in, usually during our ELA time. There's times where it might be in a science or a social studies class, given the needs and the actual schedule availability for our MLL staff. So they are still pushing in and doing that support facilitation. So they may be going in during a portion of their ELA time to help during small groups, working on writing, so on. We're working a lot on expressive language, so we really push the writing piece because we know that is actually kind of our, that's the reach for our kids becoming English proficient according to the assessment. So we know that writing is kind of that overall goal, is to get them with that expressive language. The newcomer program at the middle school and high school level is actually a class that they go to. So they're there for a full 55 or 90-minute block, depending on the school and the schedule. And so they'll do kind of foundational skills. The newcomer program at the elementary level is usually, it's a pull out. So usually what we've seen, and it may vary between schools, and Kim can probably talk to that a little bit more, but it's usually kind of first thing in the morning. They'll pull them and check in on them. How's everything going? How you feeling? Working on some foundational skills. We use Brains for Fluency with our newcomers at the elementary level. It's a curriculum that we use. So that's kind of what it looks like overall of how that 120 or 150 minute kind of adds up during the week. There's times with the schedule, sorry, I don't mean to, there's times with the schedules also that it would be just like 2 days a week that they might meet, depending on that class and the levels of those kids. Other times it's every day. It just depends on, kind of varies from year to year.
You actually answered my question because I wanted to know about the elementary model for the newcomer. But then something's in my head, so I hope it's appropriate. Have we seen a reduction in services since last school year?
Not that I know, in terms of time that they're with kids. Actually, our staffing's expanded a little bit due to our numbers.
Yeah, I think more a change of program, perhaps. Nope.
No.
Okay.
No.
Do you want me to? Please.
I'll be happy.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Superintendent Banner, Board of President Anderson Pearson, and school board directors. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to update you on the continued planning and implementation of the district's implementation of the DODEA 2024 Pathways to Biliteracy Grant, including the dual language and heritage programs. Since the board was last updated in the spring of 2025, the district has implemented a kindergarten dual language classroom at Four Heroes Elementary, as well as a world language immersion kindergarten classroom at Carter Lake Elementary and Hillside Elementary. In addition, an 8th grade applied algebra for heritage speakers has been launched at Thomas Middle School, as well as in partnership with the 2021 DODEA World Language Grant and Pacific Lutheran University, the second year of a college in the high school Spanish course at Lakes High School. It was decided in the spring of 2025 that after a thorough review of the demographics at Carter Lake, Hillside, and Four Heroes Elementary Schools, program titles and frameworks were updated to better align with student enrollment at each school. Four Heroes Elementary has been launched as a dual language immersion program, as enrollment data indicated a balanced representation of students from both Spanish-speaking homes, the target language, and English-speaking homes. Carter Lake and Hillside Elementary have launched as world language immersion programs where enrollment is primarily English-speaking students. This slide outlines the instructional models used in dual language and world language immersion classrooms. You might remember from the workshop presentation in the spring, there are two primary models in two-way immersion education, the 90-10 model and the 50-50 model. In a 90-10 model, instruction begins with 90% in the partner language and 10% in English during the first 1 to 2 years. Over time, the proportion of instruction in the partner language gradually decreases while English instruction increases, reaching a 50-50 balance by 4th or 5th grade. Research supports the implementation of a 90-10 model, as studies indicate that increasing English instruction does not result in higher English proficiency for multilingual learners. In contrast, greater exposure to the partner language in a 90-10 model leads to higher levels of bilingual proficiency and stronger target language skills. By the end of elementary school and into middle school, students in 90-10 programs demonstrate greater Spanish oral language and literacy skills compared to those in 50-50 models. Additionally, both native English speakers and Spanish speakers benefit from higher levels of bilingual proficiency in a 90-10 program. This research-based approach aligns with our commitment to developing highly proficient bilingual and biliterate students through our immersion programs. Algebra for the district's 8th graders was also launched this fall 25-26. Thomas Middle School has one section designated for heritage Spanish speakers. This class integrates both Spanish and English instruction to enhance bilingual mathematical literacy, allowing students to engage with complex mathematical concepts in both languages. Taught by both a middle school math teacher and world language teacher, this course helps students prepare for advanced coursework in both Spanish and English to support students' biliteracy goals. It serves as a stepping stone for those interested in bilingual certification, future dual language programs, or careers requiring proficiency in both mathematics and Spanish. Additionally, through a partnership with PLU and with combined funding with the 2021 DODEA World Language Grant, the district is able to offer one section of college and high school Spanish class. In the class, students can earn high school and college credit through PLU that transfer to other universities as needed. This course is completed online with college professors assigning and providing feedback to students, while a high school teacher and bilingual paraeducator support students in the classroom. Since the board update in the spring, significant recruitment efforts have taken place through parent meetings, collaboration with school administrators and counselors, and engagement with community partners. These efforts have successfully filled classrooms close to capacity as shown in this slide. The district office extends its appreciation to school leaders and community partners for their exceptional support, including hosting family nights and addressing questions from families, staff, and community members about the district's mission to expand world language opportunities. The district has also worked throughout the spring and summer to ensure proper staffing was provided to schools for a successful launch for extending these opportunities. At the elementary level, each school is staffed with a bilingual kindergarten teacher and a bilingual family engagement paraeducator to support instruction and family outreach. In middle school, staffing includes an 8th grade algebra teacher and a bilingual world language teacher, supported through a co-teaching model to enhance language integration. At the high school level, students are served by a world language teacher, a bilingual paraeducator, and a virtual PLU college instructor to expand access to advanced language learning opportunities. Staff worked over the summer to ensure that they were properly trained and received the most up-to-date professional development in dual language programming. Teachers across K-8 participated in targeted professional development to strengthen dual language instruction. This included attending the Association of Two-Way and Dual Language Education Conference. The district in dual language and world language immersion kindergarten teachers also received training in key curricular resources: Haggerty for Spanish Phonemic Awareness, Vista Listos for Spanish Language Arts, Imagine Learning Espanol, Estrelita for Spanish Phonics. Additionally, 8th grade teachers received training in Project Lead the Way to support integrated project-based learning. I want to thank you all again for your time and would like to take this opportunity to answer any questions that you may have.
I do have one question. This is sort of with the DODEA grant, correct? All right, I'm just gonna come on out and say it. If the funding goes away, I'm pretty sure that the current administration made, the official language of the United States English or whatever. I don't, if something changes at the administration, they're like, we don't see value in this program. To be clear, I find value in this program, but say that's not the case at the federal administration. Would we have the funds to continue this program?
We would probably have to look at it from a comprehensive perspective, like how much of the program, meaning if it costs this much and that's what we get in a grant, then we'd have to look at how do we look at it in terms of what can we afford. And so that's a conversation that we definitely will be having as we learn more about the volatility and uncertainty of the current administration's federal funding. And so our team, starting with teaching and learning and council, would be looking at that. It really boils down to what's the FY26 budget at the federal level going to look like?
Yeah, and so those teachers who are the bilingual teachers, were they hired under this grant or were they here already?
They're just paid from the grant.
But they were already.
They're our teacher, regardless
Okay.
of whether they're grant funded or not, because teacher and paraeducators work under a collective bargaining agreement. And so it's not like they're set aside here. And if the grant goes away, those teachers go away. Now, if there were, and I'm not suggesting there were a RIF or reduction in force, then we would go to those collective bargaining agreements
Yeah.
for how teachers are displaced and how they keep or don't. In the almost 6 years now that I've been superintendent, I don't see where we would have to, we might have to reduce a program, but staffing wise, we tend to have the positions. They're not always the positions a person wants, but we tend to have the positions. So I don't think we'd send anybody quote unquote packing, but the position could go away, which means they would then fill another position that they're certified by the state of Washington to teach. And we would follow all CBA language in that process.
Any other questions? Oh, yep, sorry. We'll just go around this way.
Thank you for your presentation. I think this was mentioned much earlier, but do we know how many languages are spoken in our district? 58. Good.
I just have a quick question. When I see Project Lead the Way, I think vocational or CTE funding. Is that a CTE course or just a name for the program for the 8th grade or part of the program?
We are simply partnering them for projects. So our algebra, we're trying to make it more relevant for our kids. So we're in our curriculum guide, we're baking in projects for kids to do, and they have a huge resource of those projects. So we're partnering with them for that.
It's a framework for instruction. It's not a CTE course, but the hands-on, the relevancy is what we're trying to attach to. Our next report will be delivered by Executive Director Amy Day for Business Services. As you're all aware, there is a policy that will be up for second reading and adoption, 6217, electronic funds transfers. And so we wanted to take this opportunity. Come on.
Yeah,
Oh, no, you are correct. You are correct. I just jumped one on my, I heard two reports, but they were encompassed into one. Sorry about that, Leanna. Our next report will be an update by Executive Director Leanna Albrecht on Parent Square, the web, and the communications. As you guys are aware, well, you're going to kind of go with history, right? Remember last January when you said we need something different? Enter stage left.
All right. Thank you very much. Good evening, Board of Directors. Thank you for this opportunity to provide you with an update on the district's launch of our new website and our new communication platform, Parent Square, which has replaced School Messenger. So I'll be happy to answer your questions after this brief update. The scope of the project was to replace our previous notification platform as well as websites, and that included one-way phone, email, and text notifications for families and staff, and the website platform in alignment with the start of the 25-26 school year. This project is allowing us to expand and enhance our communication and engagement at the district and school levels. As part of the project, we have built district and school websites with new navigation and content instead of migrating content over to improve our end users' experience while maintaining accessibility. We've launched the communication platform first with one-way communication, and we will implement two-way communication later this school year that allows our families to communicate in their preferred language, which is translated to English for the school. The selected platform, Parent Square, provides us with one dashboard from which to send notifications through email, text, and phone, to communicate with stakeholders through direct messaging and post to the website. And then to review the timeline, beginning in February, we finalized the features we were looking for in the new platform, and a committee recommended a vendor for superintendent review. The board approved the recommended vendor selection in the spring, and we launched the Parent Square system and district and school websites with priority content in August. This September, we've begun to train principals and designated support staff on the one-way communication tools in the system. This is a rolling implementation during the school year, so we will expand training for staff after schools are trained and comfortable using the system, and that will also include rolling out the expanded features. So the design of the district and school websites was based on stakeholder input. This informed how we designed the top channel bar and navigation, which is the organization of content. Additionally, the main page includes priority content such as calendars, icons, and information. Imagery was important to reflect our district's work, culture, and focus on creating promising futures and educating our students. You will notice that there is a translation bar that is up at the top right, along with a drop down for popular links that will change throughout the year, including the icons and the photo gallery. School websites are similar in design, but they do have a slightly adjusted channel bar. It still includes priority content and additional get to know the school feature on the front. These components will also be updated during the school year as we become more integrated in posting of content to reflect the school. Our goal is to reflect the school's culture and engage and draw families in. To date, stats are promising. As you know, stakeholder input is important, and we've worked to engage our stakeholders throughout the process that is ongoing. This included gathering input on content needs. We did this through activities with the Parent Connections Council and a district-wide communications survey. We reviewed pages with school and department leads, and we're continuing to gather input and make adjustments. Our websites are not static, and so we're working to implement structures to support this goal. Now that we have launched the Parent Square platform, we'll continue to expand use of the system with administrators and designated staff throughout the year. As the implementation is new, we're learning a great deal about the system and the capabilities. So we're very excited about that prospect. And it took a great deal to launch this, so I greatly appreciate the partnership with ITS and the Comrail teams working in unison with the school and the departments to get this launched in alignment with the start of the school year. I'm now happy to answer any questions you have, and if I don't have an answer, I will follow up with Superintendent Banner.
Can't find, sorry. Thank you. This was really great. I can't find where the translation piece is on the first slide. Can you point to it again?
Sure. If we go back to
I think it's page 5.
slide 5, it is on the top. I'm sorry, if we'll go back to slide 2. So on each page of the website, it's right up to the top right in a different color.
Is it just an icon?
It is an icon, and
Okay.
they click on it and they can select their language.
That's why I couldn't find it. Thank
And
you.
on the desktop, it looks different. And then on the mobile, it's more prominent. Mhm.
Question.
Yes.
So is the communication that parents are getting now, like their reminders, like late start Wednesday, are they going through the new system now?
Yes.
Is it easy? I had just heard one piece of feedback, and honestly, I said, you can probably go in and select your preferred method of communication, because I think they were getting phone calls, emails, and texts. I'm like, have you tried going in and changing your settings? But then I didn't know if that was a thing. Can parents opt out of like emails? Okay.
Yes, they can. And it's similar to School Messenger. This is a lot easier, but similar to the past, because we have a lot of families transitioning in and out of the school district with important notifications. We do the email, text, and phone. And so they can go in, and that's part of the communication that we're working on, is you can select the settings that you want to receive info.
I had no doubt. So I confidently said that, and I just want to make sure that my confidence was, built around facts. And then I just want to say I really love the new website. I feel like it's so easy. Before I had a hard time navigating the website myself, and I feel like I should have been better at it, but this is really easy, and I hope that families and the community feels the same way.
My question is, a former principal, you put a lot of messages out there. It used to be auto dialer back in the day, but yeah, sorry, Superintendent Banner, but it's been a long time. Anyway, so how hard is it now for the school leaders to put a message out, either in voice or text? Is it pretty complicated, or is it?
It is amazing compared to the system that we had before. So we've done training of about 11 school admin and school admin teams, and it's been positive feedback. Because it's integrated on the dashboard, it's very simple to send out messages. So we've heard positive feedback so far.
Now, we wanted to make sure that you all had an opportunity to engage in discussion or questions prior to going to the first or the second reading, which is adoption of policy 6217. And so our executive director, Amy Day for Business Services, is here. Sorry about that last one. Got you off rocker. Go ahead, Amy.
Okay, good evening, board members, Superintendent Banner, geez, I'm a little under the weather, sorry. We submitted a new policy for first reading, policy 6217, electronic fund transfer on September 8th. Every year, Washington State School Directors Association recommends policy creations and updates for school districts, which the state auditors then use as their guidelines. It is recommended that the board adopt policy 6217 and procedure 6217 P1, following the guidelines set by WASDA for school districts to initiate, approve, and record electronic fund transactions. The district currently uses EFTs for payroll transactions. And in the school year 2025, we started implementing paying vendors via EFT. This allows for speed, efficiency, lower cost, reduced risk of theft and fraud, and improved accuracy. More importantly, it incorporates the state auditor's office recommendations and WASDA's. That is it on EFTs. Questions? Yes. Oh, no. Yeah. 6,000 series. We'll fix that. Thank you.
Any questions?
And the second part of the report tonight is we
Yes.
are looking at and have submitted the concept of shifting how you see your written reports and making that consistent with what you see at the end or when we start our budget cycle and as we go through our budget cycle. The key piece here, I won't steal your thunder, but
That's right.
I just want to make sure you do talk about the efficiencies and the amount of time it takes to do it,
Yes.
what we do now, and the amount of time it will take to do the same information that is more consistent with what you see in a given budget report.
Yes. So as you know, I've just been here a year. When I got here, the budget, the financial statements that we presented to you each month took over 6 hours to create. And yeah, huge inefficiency. Not to mention, there's a lot of room for human error there. So we started looking at just pulling the information directly from the system, working with our IT department to make sure that that is accurate. And then as I presented the budget to you throughout the budget season, thought let's incorporate this together so that they align, they look the same, you know what you're looking at, you're not trying to figure it out each month. So that was the idea. Oh, I'm not clicking. I need Greg. I don't even know which button it is. So sorry. Okay, so first we present more of a high level information via graphs, and then we'll dive into the budget status reports. This fully covers the required RCW 28A 505.040, where we are required to report fund balances and explanations for any revenue and expenditure variances. So the first graph you see represents our student FTE. All months are included, as well as the prior 2 years for comparison for you. The horizontal line in purple is our annual average FTE, which is what we're funded on. And then the blue line is the budgeted FTE for the year. So this just gives you, again, it follows what I presented to you during the budget season, but a nice visual for you to see where we're at. The next slide is our general fund balance graph. This is just easy for you to look at a year-to-year trend by month. And again, it's just the general fund. Next graph is we pull out revenue only. This shows you the current revenues received each month along with previous 2 years. You'll see when we have a spike or a dip, for example, April. And when we have these, we'll identify them in the content. April would be receipt of local tax revenue. And then in August, you'll see it'll follow trend again to spike upward as we receive final apportionment for the year. And then the expenditure report. This is the last graph. It's just a high-level overview, providing the visual for the year. If you remember in January, when I presented the budget, we had a little spike in expenditures, and we identified that as SPED contracts that we had paid. This will just show it to you on a monthly basis, and we'll be able to identify those throughout the year instead of just during budget season. And then these are the documents that are required per that RCW, the budget status reports. They look very similar to what was previously reported. We've just updated the process behind the scene. Again, just to reiterate, it took over 6 hours. This whole document here took about an hour to put together. And that includes review, of course, by another person in finance. So we will continue upgrading, and then it just goes on to show you the other funds. Those will be available in each month's financial statements. Capital Projects Fund, the Debt Service Fund, ASB Fund, and then finally Transportation Vehicle Fund.
And then Amy, if I could just add, you talked about 6 hours to create, and that was because we were hand inputting
Correct.
as opposed to extracting the data and putting it in, pasting it,
Yeah.
however. And then it was how many hours for the next person to review the hand input?
Yeah, then it took approximately 2 hours for me to review it because there was so much source documentation that went into creating that hand document that you guys did.
So that goes from
It's,
8 hours to a total of,
An hour of human labor. It takes about 10 minutes to run the report on a bad day.
so this was just a function of, we just did this and that's the way we did it.
Yeah.
Year over year. And then it becomes a function of getting new eyeballs on our system and looking at more efficiencies. And so the more efficient we can be, I think that just adds to our financial acumen, which is not just a funny feeling in my elbow. It's backed up by state auditor's office audits. So questions for Amy?
Any questions?
And I need to meet with somebody so they can just explain it better to me. I know. I just wanted to let you know.
Maybe I'm having a stroke because Superintendent Banner was teasing me earlier, but page 7 is just a little bit blurry for me. So if we could blow it up
Yeah.
just a little bit more, that would be helpful for me. But page 7 just a little bit blurry, I think. Maybe the copy. Okay, I'm not having
Yeah.
a stroke. Thank you.
I struggled with the PowerPoint. That's on me, human error over here. But yes, they'll be extremely clean and in a nice font size as well.
Say thank you for finding this. This has not once come up in the 8 years that I have been sitting here, which surprises me because that seems like a large waste of time to just shift the formatting. You know what though? Maybe someone previously wanted it that way. That was very important to them. I do not feel that way. I feel like these are very easy to read. So I appreciate the efficiency.
Thank you.
Update on middle school athletics as we had switched the seasons, and that will be delivered by Assistant Superintendent Kevin Ruprecht, as well as our District Athletic Director, Ryan Taylor. Floor is yours, gentlemen.
Good evening. President Anderson Pearson, directors of the school board, and Superintendent Banner. Tonight, District Athletic Activities Director Ryan Taylor and I will share a brief update on middle school athletics. Clover Park Middle Schools, Thomas, Hutloff, and Lockburn participate in the Seamount Middle School League. Membership consists of Steilacoom Historical School District, Pioneers Middle School, and Yelm Community School District's 2 schools, Ridgeline Middle School and Yelm Middle School. And yes, Yelm will be participating again this year with the Seamount League, with a few exceptions per their own internal decisions. In February 2025, the Seamount League determined to realign the sports seasons. There were several factors that were considered: student participation, facility management, field use, restoration, neighboring league schedules, and Seamount League membership. It is also important to note that the season adjustment frees up baseball, fast pitch, football, volleyball, and soccer officials to work middle school games. And this may also support middle school development by making high school coaches available to coach at the middle school level. We will speak more to student participation later in this presentation. Additionally, Seamount League has taken the opportunity to invite 2 former member school districts middle schools back into the league. Franklin Pierce School District's Ford Middle School and Keithley Middle School, and University Place School District Curtis Junior High. Both school districts' schools are examining their options for rejoining the league in the 26-27 school year.
The Clover Park School District has been communicating to all our student athletes and families since the end of last school year. The largest shift is the fall to spring change, where baseball, fast pitch, track, and tennis are in the fall, and cross-country, football, volleyball will be in the spring. Additionally, you will note a new sport being discussed, flag football. Girls flag football was just recently sanctioned by the Washington Interscholastic Athletic Administration as a sport, and the Clover Park School District, along with the Seamount League and our high school sports leagues, the South Puget Sound League and the Puget Sound League, are investigating adding in this sport. Facility use was one of the factors we needed to consider when making adjustments to the middle school sports season. Middle school Winter 1 and Winter 2 soccer may use Harry Lang for games when evening light is an issue, along with adjusting our competition start times as determined by the league. This season, our Lockburn Fast Pitch team is using Clover Park High School softball field for practice and games, while our Seamount League track meet will be hosted at Lakes High School this year. Late summer, we were able to execute a contract with Final Forms. Final Forms is an online registration software that helps to simplify forms and requirements for enrollment, improves data management, and ensures safety and compliance in sports registration. With Final Forms, we have helped our ASB secretaries with document organization, clearance efficiencies, and increased our student, family, coach, and sports medicine communications. We also manage our required coaching certifications. We are taking daily attendance in Final Forms, which not only helps us confirm which students are in our care after school, it also gives us stronger participation data. Our communication and training implementation began with a broad communication in July, high school training early August, and middle school training late August. Our total participation numbers for the 2025-26 school year are on the left. Participation is on pace to match previous years as we await winter and spring numbers. Participation numbers may fluctuate. This is due to sports being in new season groups. For example, fast pitch and baseball were in different seasons and now are in the same season. We also have some students that we see selected a sport in Final Forms, but haven't quite completed registration. These are two examples of snapshot data that is available for us in Final Forms. This tells us in the moment fast facts about our students' involvement and management of our participating students.
CPSD middle schools and the Seamount League look forward to this sports and activities-filled year and providing great opportunities for our students. We are happy to entertain any questions at this time. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you for your report. I just have one quick question regarding students at Harrison Prep. And how does this affect them being able to participate in?
No, our Harrison Prep students, so the middle schoolers, grades 6, 7, and 8, are able to participate at their neighborhood school, their resident school, or Lockburn Middle School, which is right across the street. And then our high school athletes by rule, WIAA rule, have to participate at their resident school site. So either CP or Lakes.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. So middle school level is Lockburn, are they doing something, we doing something with the fields at Lockburn to improve their participation on the fields, or I was gone a little bit, so I don't know what's been going on with that.
So part of the facility management of all this is giving us that flexibility to access the many fields and sites that we do have. So we are looking at all of our available options for preceding seasons this year and as well into next year.
Okay. And then my second question is about the high school participation. Maybe it's the middle school participation. It looks like males are 54% approximately and females are 46%. When does Title IX get upset about it not being perfect anymore, or are they a little more flexible now?
I don't think there's an issue with perfection. It's just what we offer, what the opportunities are. The opportunities have to be perfect in terms of equal opportunities between male and female. And as we go back to the question on the fields, we are looking at how do we make sure that Lockburn, it's kind of cool to go to the big fields to play, but at the same time, Lockburn shouldn't have to do that. And so we're looking at, through our facilities management, how to make sure that their fields are at a space where they get to play and practice there. But we will be looking at, because it frees up fields, as Dr. Ruprecht said earlier, it frees up fields. So why not have the big district track meet for middle school at one of our high schools, right? Why not have a jamboree for football here, or have some of our kids love to play under the lights? We can do that at our high school fields. And so we'll be looking for those opportunities. And at the same time, I don't want to brush past, Lockburn deserves to have a field that coordinates, is the right size, et cetera. And so we're looking at that. In the meantime, we're making sure that they are able to come over and play on some cool fields.
And at Banner, I thought I read that Lockburn, they're prepping another field right now. That Lockburn was prepping another field right now. Did I not read that?
Or girls fast pitch, they are over here at Clover Park High School at the fields here, the facilities here. And we're looking at their fields to make sure that they are regulation. Regulation is not as important in middle school. I'm not taking away from middle school, but you don't have to be like right to the inch mark of something. But we also are looking to make sure that their field, because the outfield butts up against the track, we want to make sure that there's not a safety issue there. And so we may have to look at some things there. Gentlemen, thank you. Is on an update on assessment as presented by Brian Gable, our Director of Assessment and Program Evaluation, as well as our Deputy Superintendent, Dr. Kelly Raymond. And Brian doesn't sit down for his reports. He's a mover.
I think better when I'm standing. Superintendent Banner, President Anderson Pearson, and the rest of the board, it is my pleasure to present today on the 2025 ELA Math and Science results. My name is Brian Gable. I'm the Director of Assessment and Program Evaluation, and I have forgotten my clicker. Thank you. So, what can you hold me accountable for today when you walk out of here? Today, we're going to learn about the phasing out of the term meeting standard on the Smarter Balanced Assessment. Next, we're going to learn why student growth versus proficiency is a more valuable metric for educators and administrators to focus upon. Student growth is measured with the student growth percentile, so we're going to do a little bit of a refresher on the student growth percentile and how to interpret it. Then we're going to move on to looking at ELA and Math Smarter Balanced Assessment results, both proficiency and growth. Then we're going to take a moment to celebrate some of the schools in our district who have beat the Washington State student growth average in both ELA and math, or at least in one of those. And then we're going to move on to looking at the science results from the WCAS, known as the Washington Comprehensive Assessment of Science. So, Met Standard. We all say it. Met Standard is a term that is no longer going to be used to describe student performance on the Smarter Balance Assessment, at least in Washington. You see, in mid-2024, the Smarter Balance Consortium and OSPI tag team to rebrand the performance level descriptors of the Smarter Balanced. They did this in collaboration with the Educational Research and Data Center, otherwise known as the ERDC in Olympia. They worked with a group of researchers there that showed that 10th graders that scored a level 2, they followed them through time, and they found that not only were they graduating, a majority of them were graduating, but they were successful in their first years of college. The new descriptors are going to be more positive and more growth focused, at least that's what they're meant to be. And Washington State's not the only one to change their rebranding of the performance levels on the Smarter Balanced. California's also done so. So how have the performance level descriptors changed on the Smarter Balanced? Up top here, we can see the old SBA performance level descriptors, levels 1 through level 4. Meeting standard was level 3 and up. Of note, level 2, which was standard nearly met, is now turning into foundational grade level knowledge. And level 1, which was standard not met, is now going to be described as inconsistent grade level knowledge. So where will you find these terms? You'll start finding them on the publicly reported Washington State report card. All last year, up until September 9th, this is what it would look like. This is the state total. This is not our district. You can see over here in the assessment area, they have 2 sets of assessment results. They got over here level 3 and above, otherwise known as students on track for college level learning without needing remedial classes. And then down below, they got the level 2 and above, which is described as students showing foundational grade level knowledge and skills or above. However, the next day, on September 10th, Chris Reichdahl announced the 2025 ELA and math results and science results and level, and the only descriptor of Smarter Balanced performance was level 2 and above, which is students showing foundational grade level knowledge or above. So why should we focus more on student growth? Proficiency is proficiency. I've been researching with Washington State student level data for 15 years. And I can tell you that proficiency tells us much more about the communities we serve. But student growth tells us much more about how well we serve those communities. It's best to give an example. Over here, we have a classroom, say, of 15 students, and this is how they score at the end of year test in 2024. Each of these dots here represents a student, and these are the different levels, level 1, 2, 3, and 4. These students, after they finish in my classroom, they go over to another teacher's classroom in 2025. That teacher is an amazing teacher, and watch what that teacher does to each of these levels. That teacher pushes up all of these students, rises them all up. But notice that even though everybody's risen in their proficiency, they have not passed the dotted line. So the percent proficient here was 27%. And if we calculate it here, we can see it stays 27%. So if we're only looking at percent proficiency, we're missing the amount of growth that occurred over the course of the year, just because nobody crossed this magical dotted line. So the median student growth percentile may explain that better. It helps us explain growth of students better, not whether or not they cross the dotted line. So we're going to talk about the student growth percentile and what it means. It's best to do so with an example. We have Lionel over here who in grade 5, 2024, did well on his Smarter Balanced English Language Arts test. 1 year later, he took that test and he got a higher score. He grew. But before I take him to the fair to celebrate, I kind of want to ask myself, well, hold on here, Lionel. What about every single student who started here? How did they do? Well, it turns out that Lionel did well. The highest performing student scored fairly well above him, but the lowest performing was far below. In other words, Lionel grew better than 66% of students who started where he started. This is what the SGP means. Tracks growth. It's a longitudinal metric, all in one number. That student Lionel who got that 66 or greater would be characterized by OSPI to have high growth for that amount of gain. If Lionel had a 33, an SGP of 33 or lower, it would be low growth, and anything in the middle would be considered typical. For a classroom or a group of students, they typically line students up from the lowest SGP to the highest SGP and take the student in the middle or the median student and look at that student's student growth percentile. A student with a 60, if this student had a 61 or greater, that could be considered a high growth classroom. In other words, half of the students have an SGP of 61 or greater in the class. On the other hand, if that student had an SGP of 39, then that would mean that half of that classroom would have an SGP of 39 or lower. Anything in between would be considered typical growth. Now let's move on to state assessment slides for proficiency and growth. In the past, I just bored you with the numbers of percent proficiency and median SGP. But what I'd like to do this time is place those numbers in the context of the state. So to do that, we're going to use something called the Washington School Improvement Framework, something you may have heard of before. Well, there are two charts here that represent the different ranges of proficiency from low to high. Basically, ranking each of these ranges giving it a score of 1 to 10, where 10 is the lowest and where 1 is the lowest, representing the bottom 10% of performance in the state, and 10 is the highest, representing the top 10%. Notice for math and ELA, the math numbers are lower for the same scores. It's because the math assessment is a more difficult assessment to pass. Many fewer students pass the math than they do the ELA. The same can be done using student growth. Student growth ranges are also here, where the same decile, 1 to 10, exists. I didn't explain this in the last slide, but here you'll see 1 and 2 are red, which represent typical levels for schools that would qualify for comprehensive support. Those of you who know the Washington School Improvement may understand that's the most intensive level of support that's given to schools. So I will make these slides easier by not only giving you the percentages and the medians, but I'll also add the deciles scores to this. This is grade 3. We're going to start from grade 3 and we're going to work ourselves up to grade 10. One thing that you'll see with proficiency is that here, the COVID pandemic, across the state, proficiency levels dropped. So you're going to see that trend in all the proficiency slides. Here you can see that our proficiencies in the mid to mid-low decile range. And again, this tells us more about the students and communities we serve. Grade 4 has similar slides with performance, the drop after the pandemic, and performance in the mid to mid-low decile range. But after grade 4, we can start looking at growth because we have grade 3 and grade 4. We can start tracking those kids. So now we're going on to grade 4 growth. Student growth slides are denoted with that arrow there on the side showing above average growth and below average growth. We could see here that our elementary schools before the pandemic were not growing students as strongly as they are now. We are solidly on par with the state average. Let's go to grade 5 proficiency. Similar trends, similar decile ranges in the mid to mid-low. But grade 5 growth is even stronger. Before the pandemic, it was fairly strong, very strong. And then after the pandemic, again, solidly on par with the state growth average. In 6th grade, things begin to change a little bit. We have some drop. Again, you can see the drop after the pandemic. Decile ranges start dropping in performance to the 2nd decile solidly after the pandemic. Growth in grade 6 shows this. Growth is quite high right before the pandemic, but following the pandemic, we see decile growth scores in the 1st and 2nd deciles. Moving on to grade 7, again, drop after the pandemic with decile scores solidly in the 2nd decile. Looking at grade 7 growth, we can see that growth is fairly strong pre-pandemic and then afterward hovered between the first and second deciles. And by grade 8, we can see that some first instances of decile scores in the one area for the last 2 years, but ELA rebounding going up to the third decile by the spring of 2025. Grade 8 growth does show some recovery occurring and is stronger overall than the 6 and 7. And finally, grade 10, proficiency. Grade 10 across the state, we saw the biggest drop from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic, with almost a 10 percentile point drop in ELA and math. One of the bright spots here with our district is the increase in proficiency going from 2024 to 2025. We can see that we rose 1 decile in ELA and 1 decile in math. Looking at this from a growth perspective is exciting. The state does not calculate grade 10 student growth percentiles, but we work with the Center of Assessment in Boston to do this and to express growth of these 10th graders. What does that mean? Well, because the state doesn't test students in 9th grade, the growth represents essentially the end of 8th grade to the end of 10th grade, essentially the first 2 years of high school. In 2024, when we first did this, we found the growth was quite low of our 10th graders. That's like growth from 8th to 10th grade. However, we shared these data with the principals, and the amount of growth that we saw in ELA and in math was tremendous, both above the average. Now, despite some of the proficiency and growth challenges in the district, we have many schools that are meeting or exceeding the state level growth average. These schools right here, both in ELA and in math, all students, when combined, you're looking at the median SGP that is at least 50 or above. Of note is Tyee Park, which serves a higher poverty neighborhood in the district with proficiency rates low in the 28, 21 percentile for ELA and math, but they are meeting the state growth average in ELA and exceeding it in math. Hillside Elementary is another school with lower proficiency rates, but has some of the highest growth numbers that we've seen here in the district, with a 67 median SGP in mathematics. That's extremely high. So good job for these districts, or these schools. Honorable mentions are these other 6 schools that did the same thing, but only in ELA. Of note again is Park Lodge, a higher poverty school that has a 56 median SGP, and Gravelly Lake, only 18% proficiency, but a 57 in ELA. Science results. In science, we could see, we don't see quite it for 5th grade science, we don't see quite the pandemic drop going from 2019 to 2022. The gaps between the state and the district remain relatively constant as we go on. Notice that when the state drops in proficiency, we tend to drop as well. In grade 8, we had a bigger drop post-pandemic and relatively consistent gaps. Notice the state increased a little bit, but we also increased a little bit, so we shadowed the state. Grade 11 is one of the grades for science that we didn't see a huge, we actually had closed the gap pre-pandemic, but post-pandemic that gap opened up and stayed relatively consistent. So what did we learn today? The key takeaways: the term Met Standard is being replaced by proficient. We've learned that OSPI prefers reporting foundational grade level knowledge over that level 3 and up, which is proficient on their report card. We've learned that proficiency tells us more about who we are serving, while student growth tells us more about how well we are serving them. We've learned that our elementary student growth metrics are solidly on par with the state average. but that grade 6 and 7 student growth metrics are low. On the other hand, we've seen our high school student growth metrics accelerate quite a bit from in 2025. And then finally, we do have many schools in our district that are exceeding the state growth average in one or both subjects. Are there any questions? Oh, yeah.
Good evening. Superintendent Banner, President Anderson Pearson, and directors. Just want to add from a teaching learning perspective, I want to talk to you before we go to questions because you may have some, and this may help you think about what we're doing. So what we've been doing the last few years, I'm new this year, but I have discovered what we have been doing and what we're going to strengthen and continue to enhance student learning and also teaching in the middle school. Because as you saw, our growth is low in the area of middle school. So we're supporting middle school math. We have a 3-year DODEA grant for student voice and agency that has been ongoing work. We compacted the curriculum, looked at essential standards to prepare students for 8th grade algebra. You heard previously also we are doing we've done some project Lead the Way for integrated project-based learning to support applied algebra approaches to support our 8th grade students in math and also to support our teachers in using those modules and integrating them, still teaching at the state standards, Common Core state standards. We're in year 2 of thinking, building classrooms, and all teachers have been trained. This year we'll be doing studio model with consultants with 6th and 7th grade math teachers where they plan together and then they watch each other teach and learn from those observations. This year we have a focus. We've done that previously in 6th and 7th grade. This year our focus is on 8th grade. We're still looking at expanding support for 6th and 7th grade math. As we know, transition years are important. So elementary math, we've done work with a consultant for the past 2 years, and we're onboarding new schools this year with a balanced math approach. And that should help bridge those gaps when we move from 5th grade into the middle school. We also have a 5th grade support plan for science this year. Regarding ELA, as you know, we've adopted a new curriculum this year, starting this year, monitoring that, and also supplemented our writing curriculum. Instructional leadership is a focus this year for our principals. We have the Association of Washington School Principals framework. We have their exec director and another member of their team coming and doing this work with all ALT, including principals and assistant principals, that helps them think about how to be an instructional leader and to monitor and adjust instruction and giving feedback to our teachers, and also collaborating with our teachers in a team and strengthening approach. We're also strengthening our PLCs, and we have DIS days, which our teams come together with principals and teacher teams where we do some learning together about different aspects of PLCs because we've been doing these for many years, but just strengthening those. And the principal and teacher leaders go back, collaborate with their teams and lead that PD. So there's some things we're doing to strengthen and enhance our student learning and teaching.
My question is, how with this shift in the way the state is looking at student improvement, how do we report how students are doing in their courses? Is this going to shift that at all?
Like our report card, no. And we will submit the same data that we submit to the state, and they will take it and put it into their way of sharing that. But no, our report card reporting is the same. That's worse than changing bus routes. At this time, it's the same.
I think it's about time reporting student growth rather than proficiency. I think proficiency was always kind of a ridiculous number to chase after. You know, it's just like that one graph you showed where kids are coming up, but they don't meet that magic line. It's always been kind of curious for data on student test scores, but the growth data, I really appreciate the graph, the information, and I think these schools, Beechwood, Meriwether, Hillside, Lake Louise, Clover Park High School, and Tyee Park, deserve like congratulations. That's a heavy lift after COVID to get those kind of growth results. I think it's pretty remarkable. Especially the 64 and 67 growth in math at Meriwether and Hillside. I think that's I don't know what they're doing, but should figure out what they did. And or was it an individual teacher that made that happen? Sometimes that happens, but whatever they're doing is it's pretty amazing.
It was actually concerted effort by the district, and we are expanding in elementary math this year, those same efforts. To your point of celebrating those schools, I think it was my first day with all the folks at the stadium. With Brian's help, I was able to call those individual schools out, as well as other schools that did some amazing work. We had 2 schools, Custer and Lake Louise, that exited from the improvement, from being an improvement. Our graduation rate looks to be 93.3 or 7. It's 93.3 is stuck in my head right now, so I'll stay with 93.3. Like, we can do no worse than that. Again, and I would say that it's not necessarily, it's a whole bunch of individual teachers and a whole bunch of individual administrators and a whole bunch of individual district office folks all coming together. What is it? We got 5 individual robots making one super robot. But it's a lot of work around the district, and it's amazing. And there's still work to do. Like, let's not be, I'm never fooled by, I love to have the good stuff, but it's always, if we're at 99, we got 1 to go. But thank you for that.
Thing, not to be, just to have it on the record. I know that this is a state level thing and not a Clover Park thing. I don't love the changes. I like that we're focusing more on growth. I don't think that switching the words, I get that they're trying to be more positive, but I'm just going to say, as a parent, it could be a little confusing if you got a level 2 and you think, okay, my kid is at foundational grade level knowledge. That sounds pretty good. I'm happy. Well, as a parent, I would not be happy with a level 2, but it could be confusing. Like, when sometimes I feel like you can lie with numbers, and I feel like that's what OSPI is doing on the slide, where they're reporting level 2 and above and completely leaving out level 1, so then everyone can calculate it themselves, with whatever methods they're using. And then I don't know. I don't like it. I feel like they're trying to make it seem like they're looking through rose colored glasses, in my opinion. I think that it's really important to know exactly where we're at. I think proficiency is very important. I also think growth is more important. But when we're trying to switch the words around and make people, feel better, like, as a parent, and I feel like I can speak on it because I have 2 young children, I want to know, are they meeting the grade level or are they not? Like, that is an important key, because then we have more work to do at home if our kids are not meeting what is considered grade level appropriate. So anyway, I know it has nothing to do with you. This is more rant about OSPI and how they think that maybe changing the numbers is going to make Washington look better, but that's just my 2 cents on it.
Nice thing about us is we have a Brian Gable, and our glasses don't have rose colored lenses. So we will look at celebrations, but again, if it's 99, we still need to get the 1. And that's what we do. And we have the good conversations, the tough conversations. As you heard, we're having some conversations in middle school. And we're going to have those conversations, and we also celebrate the things that need to be celebrated. And I'll just fall back on how I opened it. We have a Brian Gable. He keeps our eyes really clear as to what's going on.
I'd like to have a moment to comment. And as a reminder, when students are taking these assessments, it's a snapshot. It's 1 day. And, it could have been a pretty rough day in a family. So it's just, I think our educators do a better job than any state assessment could.
Like I said, I do appreciate the growth data being reported. I think that I agree with the categories. They're just going to name them by the first word of the category. Yeah, it's not going to change much. But I wish as a school leader, just so you know, when you're doing the AI program you're going to put together one day, but I wish as a school leader that I could tell when a kid was having trouble, like either they weren't coming to school or they were not completing assignments, or what are any of those things that would lead to a student not being academically successful. I wish that on my computer at school, those 5 kids that day that are in jeopardy, that AI would pop those kids up and I could go interview with those kids immediately rather than having to go look for them, through the old data system. And I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but I hope. I was in a debate with my daughter last night about AI in schools and stuff, and I said, listen, there are positive things that AI could do, and that's one of them. I just wish one day we could have that, because I remember sitting in my office thinking, looking at the kids walk down the hallway sometimes, or in the lunchroom, thinking, how many of these kids didn't complete an assignment today, and whether they're going to graduate or not. And I always worried about that, and I had to go look for the information. It was never really kind of given to me. Anyway, that's my comment about data.
And not seeing any more questions or comments, that concludes the district's reports for this evening. Thank you to everyone who reported tonight. And I'll turn it over to you, President Anderson Pearson.
Reports. A quick update on my front, I guess, is that we were invited, we being Superintendent Banner and I, to speak at the WASDA conference about superintendent board relations, the good times and the bad. So I'm gonna take that as I don't know if it's a compliment that they thought of us, but we're excited. I feel like we really got through some tough times together. So I'm excited to speak. I'm not going to attend the conference since I'll be off the board 2 weeks later, but they do allow you to just go speak at it. So we're being joined with Quincy School District and one other. So anyways, kind of exciting that we were, I'm going to take it as a compliment. So we're going to go with exciting that we were asked to join. And I do feel like it's a testament to our school district that we were able to get out of those times, and now we're in greener pastures. So, but anyways, I'm going to turn it over to Director Caldwell for a General Assembly follow-up.
Yes, well, if you don't know me, this is my jam. So there I sat on Saturday in my living room in the virtual General Assembly. And essentially that is where WASDA comes together and people make proposals about changing the bylaws and then focusing on different areas. So the platform was really easy to use. Last year it was in person. And it was great because they provided some examples and some training in real time. No, I did not press the button early. I did. But I knew it was me talking about. So all of our positions were the positions that passed. So we did a really good job. They did give I asked a question about the proposed bylaw amendment that changed the 90-day submission to 180 days, and found out that if they didn't do that, they would only have up 3 days to look at the potential bylaw changes before they had to print materials. So that was the real foundation behind that. It was really neat to see that every item was given 5 minutes where people could speak for it, and 5 minutes for people to speak against it. And so you can continue as long as there were people in the queue who wanted to speak on the issues. There were lots of discussions about unfunded mandates. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of the more contested issues. One was in the governance section. They wanted to change the wording as parents as important to parents as primary stakeholders. And the arguments, though, for the opposition, they also wanted to change the term guardian instead of families. But through the debate, and they found that there were a lot of examples where instances where the more restrictive language would alienate diverse households, including our Native American families. And that proposal failed. There was another one about governance training, which also failed because the school districts who were proposing this wanted required training for school board directors. And the key opposition stated that there were no other elected officials or offices having required training. And so it was all districts with limited resources having to pay for that training. And then the last one I wanted to mention was climate change. So the statement came where WASDA is going to take a position of supporting legislation that provides resources and funding to enable school districts to effectively integrate climate science and yet maintain local control. So that was a big piece of it. The against arguments included sticking just to basics like reading and math, but the proposal did pass because there was no such type of WASDA position. I felt like it was an overall very positive experience and that anybody who wanted to speak could. And so there was no lack of voice in the room. That's it.
Update. So more detailed than we've had in the past. So, oh, not prior to you. You've always give detailed reports. So we appreciate it. Thank you for sticking to our positions and for the update.
One thing to add,
Yeah.
just along the lines of legislation. So we go through the next iteration of the legislative session, and my team will be meeting, I think it's next week, to start to pull together what's out there, which will then help inform you all what you want the district positions to be at the next legislative session. And so, yeah, I think with WASDA's general session and various agencies or associations around the state starting to pull their positions together, probably not going to be a ton of change, at least in terms of the hot topics that you see. And so we'll have that information coming forward as soon as possible. Once we have our initial meeting, Director Caldwell will pull you into that conversation as well.
Executive session tonight, right? No executive session, so it's your lucky day. So that reaches the end of our meeting unless anyone has anything else. All right, so it is 6:58. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Director Caldwell. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Lowry. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say nay, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.